thank you so much for joining me. If I could start with your name and title.
I'm Andrea Lešić-Thomas. I'm the president of PEN Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you. You were at a panel yesterday on starvation as a weapon of war. And I'm wondering if you could talk to me about how literature can be used to name the person doing the starving, because a lot of the times I find that entity is always missing from the equation.
I think for, at least in Bosnian literature, large part of literature in war being written for future peace was with the recognition that the people who did the aggression will have to be neighbors in the future as they were neighbors in the past.
Yes.
So there was less of an attempt to blame and more of a desire to describe the experience, but also to describe the experience of refusing to be dehumanized and humiliated by starvation. So it was a very particular type of war situation, particularly in Sarajevo, which had Serbs who were on the hills surrounding and besieging the city, but also Serbs living among the neighbors, among the people in Sarajevo. So it was less helpful to blame a group, because the real enemy was the people who were against life lived together than any particular group that was fighting against the city, which is multicultural and a shared space.
It's interesting. It's a different type of truth and reconciliation than we've seen in other situations. And what role? I mean, you were talking about wanting to describe the experience rather than do sort of blame game. How did that manifest, that describing of the experience?
Well, for example, one of my favorite books about hunger is Sarajevski Gastronauti, Sarajevo Gastronauts by Nenad Veličković, who, by the way, has to be said, is a Sarajevo Serb writer.
Okay.
And he was in the Bosnian army.
Yes.
And he, for example, described the experience of being in the army and bringing from the front lines things like dandelion leaves and that sort of thing to his pregnant wife, who at one point then said, well, why are you wasting your time? Why don't you just let me out into the pasture and let me graze myself? So it was, it was a very complex situation. And I think the main lesson I got from that book is it's a book, it definitely comes from hunger, and you can tell from certain passages it's desperate hunger.
Yes.
But it's also about hope for the future, hope for the day when that famine will be over, when there will be food, it will be plentiful, it will be tasty, it will be healthy. And the desire to work through that experience of hunger towards a better future. And I think one of the tragedies of Bosnia as a country and Bosnian literature is that in the 30 years since the war ended, we never really invented that better future. It's still very much tied to the past and tied to the trauma of war. And no new model of living has been introduced since then.
I mean, you speak about Sarajevo as a very sort of heterogeneous place where there is this sort of mixing, and it has a long history of that. But then at the same time, it's so trauma-ridden, and we just celebrated the 30th anniversary of, well, not celebrated. Yeah, it's not a good word. Yeah. Marked the 30th anniversary of the genocide and of the war. How do you move beyond that? Is it through literature? How do you move beyond that? Specifically, what is PEN Bosnia doing to help in that process?
It's very difficult, and I think the main thing that we're trying to do is to keep the space open for anybody who wants to inhabit it. To have that as little judgmental as possible, space, but at the same time with full recognition that what happened. So we are...
So it's not a denialism.
It's not a denialism. It's just that the recognition that at this stage, there's a whole new generation that's been born that should be unburdened in a way from the past, that should be allowed to create new ways of being together, and that should not be tied to our shared various traumas as something that defines what we could become.
I love that. I love that. You know, no, I really do, because I find that there are so many countries, cultures that come from a place of trauma and want to stay there.
Well, Bosnia does, but I mean, we as I think as a group now working within PEN, I think we're trying to go beyond that. And
there's a question I've been asking all of the interviewees, and it's tied to this year's theme at PEN, which is freedom of words, words of the free. And I want to know what that means for you.
Well, I think that what it means to me is the need to redefine freedom of expression, to be much tougher on the freedom to dehumanize than we have been so far. I think that's, you know, you can say whatever you want about whatever aspect of the world and other people, but I think that dehumanization of others should be a line that we would refuse to cross, not by banning things, but by making a moral atmosphere where that becomes something that's beyond the pale. And I think that might be a way to counteract the general tendency to dehumanization that we see in public discourse, in right-wing politics, in all these movements which are against gender diversity, against migrants, against non-white male cultures.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was lovely talking to you.
You too.